Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. Today continues our Star Wars marathon, our kind of broken up marathon. And today we're talking about Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Released in 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner, written by Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan from a story by George Lucas, and starring Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Billy D. Williams, Anthony Daniels, Peter Mayhew, Kenny Baker, Frank Oz as Yoda. Alec Guinness is back as Obi-Wan, Ghost Obi-Wan. And then, of course, Anthony Daniels is C-3PO. Oh, I said that one. David Prowse is Darth Vader. James Earl Jones, of course. Boba Fett, whoever plays Boba Fett. I actually don't even know. This is the sequel to obviously, the original Star Wars. And again, you know, when we were talking about the original Star Wars, we talked about trying to put ourselves into the mindset of experiencing it for the first time in the theater. And I tried to do that again with this movie, watching it on Blu-ray, even though it's not the theatrical version. But I tried to imagine sitting in the theater, and I've only ever seen Star Wars 1, A New Hope, or 4, I guess, but the original Star Wars. And, you know, going to see Empire Strikes Back, and just how different but similar it is to the original movie. This one, I think, you know, is darker, and our heroes, you know, are kind of split up. Luke is on a different planet for most of the movie, and then of course you get the lightsaber duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. I think I would have been blown away by this movie, you know, seeing it in the theater. And then, of course, the big reveal at the end, which, speaking of, even though I think everybody knows The Empire Strikes Back, we are going to talk about the whole movie. So if you haven't seen The Empire Strikes Back, we urge you to watch it now, and then come back and listen to the podcast, because we're going to talk about everything.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
That's right.
If you do not know, I'm giving them time to turn it off. If you do not know that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father, you're not human.
You've been living under a giant rock for 35
Granted, my wife, I think she did know that Darth Vader was his father.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, though. I want to say she didn't, but I know for a fact that she did not know that Luke, spoiler alert for Return of the Jedi, pause for you to turn it off.
In case you haven't seen Return. Wait for it.
Luke and Leia are brother and sister. She did not know that.
That is similar to Denise, my fiance.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We watched Empire Strikes Back, and if you will recall from the last Star Wars episode, she was not really that big of a fan of A New Hope. She thought it was boring. She kept waiting on Yoda to show up and Darth Vader to tell Luke that he is his father. And so she said she liked the prequels better than A New Hope, which hurt my heart. And so I thought maybe she would like Empire Strikes Back more. So we watched it, and she had some questions about Luke and Leia. Like, she knew that Luke and Leia were brother and sister, and she thought that was revealed in this movie. And again, I had to be like, nope, that's the next movie. But she liked this. She said this one was better than the first movie, but she liked the second half of the movie better than the first half. I think she thought the first half was boring, and as far as I know, I think she still likes the prequels better than these movies.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Are you rethinking your engagement?
I have returned the ring. No. So, disheartening, but what can you do?
I don't understand how she can't like the first half of the movie, because it throws you right in. All right, let's go ahead and go into it.
Sure.
You start off with Luke Skywalker on a completely opposite version of what the first
Tatooine
movie
was.
Yeah,
right.
It's desert. You've got snow, and after all the stuff happens with the cave and everything, and Han Solo coming in. Speaking of Han Solo, I noticed that the only way it was pronounced in this movie is Han.
Yeah.
But
Billy D. Williams calls him Han Solo,
Han.
and somebody else calls
Princess
him Han
Leia
Solo. Leia calls him Han Solo.
Yeah, Han.
Yeah, but I think
it's going to be his future wife, so I mean, you'd think she'd know how to pronounce his name.
You'd think he'd correct them too. Like,
Right.
Guys, it's Han.
But anyway, it quickly goes into the Battle of Hoth, which is very exciting.
It's awesome. I love the Battle of Hoth. I've always liked the Empire's vehicles, which I have always referred to as AT-ATs, but I've heard them referred to as AT-ATs, which I don't like that.
I don't either.
I'm not a big fan of AT-AT.
And I'll tell you why.
Partially because the other ones, the two-legged ones, are AT-STs.
Exactly.
So are those AT-ST? that doesn't make sense to me.
That's exactly my reason. AT-STs, AT-ATs, and they refer to them in the movie as Imperial Walkers.
Right.
So if you want to get past the whole how do you pronounce it, just call them
Imperial Walkers. Those vehicles are, they're kind of like, I was thinking about it when we were watching, I was like, those vehicles really aren't like that, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not like that proficient, I suppose. Like, they're not the best vehicle to use, but they just look really cool. And of course, then the way they're taken down by the rebels is like genius. You get the tow cables around the legs. But still,
amazing.
like seeing those like across the horizon as they like are coming towards the rebel base, like I love that.
Exactly. You've got these little dots, and you don't even get to, because my daughter was watching it with us. I made sure all my kids watched it. They actually didn't want to, and I was like, no, you're going to sit down and watch Star Wars. And but it didn't take but a few seconds for them to be focused. Yeah. But my daughter was like talking about how small they were, because the first time you really see them is when Luke's, I don't know if it was Luke, I don't remember if it was Luke, I think it was, but someone takes those binoculars that they have and zooms in up on them, and you don't really get the size of scale until you see the what are they called? The Y-wings? The ships that they use.
I've heard. Well, I read somewhere today. I read them as snow speeders.
Okay.
I don't know if that's correct or not. But you can call it that, I suppose.
I think the Y-wings might be the ones that were in the A New Hope. The ones that have like.
God, I really used to know the ships really well. I used to, because there was a video game I had on my computer, and you could choose between the A-wing, the B-wing, the X-wing, and the Y-wing. And so I used to know them all really, really well. I still know which one the B-wing is. It's kind of the one that has like it almost looks like a kind of like pontoon boat type thing. It has like the real long kind of cylinder engines, I guess you would call it. But the Y-wing, God, I can't remember what the Y-wing looks like. But I don't think these are any of the wings.
Okay. Well, for that, we'll call them snow
speeders.
And you don't really get a scale of how big the Imperial Walkers are until you see the speeders going past them and getting shot down and all that stuff. But that whole scene is very awesome.
Yeah.
And like watching it, there's not a whole lot to it really. You see shots of people, putting their guns down. On bunkers and stuff, and you have the ships going and trying to take down the walkers, but that's really all there is to this scene,
right? But
it just grabs you. John Williams' music is just so perfect, and it's such an iconic event in the series.
And I would even back up a little farther and say, like, I'm hooked from the very, very beginning when Luke gets attacked by the I used to know the name of this creature too, and I forget what it is, but the abominable snowman, basically.
Right, I called it a Yeti.
He gets a
Yeti.
You're right, and he's hanging upside down, and he's like reaching for his lightsaber, and he can't reach it, and then he remembers. He's like, "Oh right, the Force." And you see it just start to like wiggle like that. At that point, that's when I'm like, this movie's awesome.
Right.
I just think it's.
And really, that's the first moment you get to see Luke use the Force.
Right, because in the first one, he's like, all he does is fire his...
Right.
Yeah.
That's was it luck? Probably not, because you have Obi-Wan. He talks about the Force. Of course, Luke used the Force to get it in there. But you visually get to see something being moved
right,
by his will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite a moment.
And I love that it takes a little while. He's not that good at it yet.
Right.
And so he's it's like a struggle. He really has to concentrate. And even when he does concentrate, it just barely kind of starts to move. And I love that. Just like, even it's simple camera work, but the way the camera kind of just slowly kind of zooms in on it as it's doing that, like, it's just really well done, I thought.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm kind of hooked on it from that point. And then, of course, he cuts the arm off the Yeti, and somebody's got to lose an arm every movie.
Who does it in the third one?
I actually don't know if anybody loses an arm in the third one.
But yeah, I agree. The second this movie starts, you're hooked in. You're remembering Star Wars, like you said, trying to watch it for the first time, like as if you were seeing it, as if no one had ever seen this, as if you had not seen Return of the Jedi.
Right.
I just can't imagine what these people were going through, like, because you're back in the universe of Star Wars, but it's different.
It is different, yeah. You're on an ice planet,
but not just that, but like there's so much more depth to it. It's not learning about a farm boy,
right?
And having him go into a universe that he has never been to. It's this world is established, really established at this point, and it's very exciting to see. From the very beginning, he's using the Force. What are you going to see after this point?
Right. And I guess, to play off of that, like, he's struggling he like escapes the Yeti and he's pretty much dying in the cold. And Obi-Wan shows up as a ghost.
That's one of my, Obi-Wan, yes, correct, go on.
And tells him to go to Dagobah, where he's going to train with Yoda. And again, you got to, like, we know who Yoda is now because he was in the prequels. He's in Return of the Jedi. We know this movie. And so Yoda has become such a popular character now. Like, again, trying to put yourself into the mindset of never even having heard of Yoda. You're like, okay, Yoda, Jedi Master.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't expect it to be the little character that he is. And also, Obi-Wan is back. He's a ghost and he's able to communicate, which I think is also kind of neat.
This was the first time you actually you heard his voice in A New Hope.
Right.
After he died, but you actually get to see, hey, this guy's actually here,
mm-hmm.
and he's looking at Luke and talking to him directly. It's not in Luke's mind.
Right.
It's not a memory of what would Obi-Wan have said.
He's telling me. Right. And then you gotta love the tauntaun part, slicing open the tauntaun. I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Exactly. I was going to say, that's one of my favorite moments in the movie.
Yeah.
But I guess even at this moment, though, if you had been watching it for the first time, you could have said, did Luke really see Obi-Wan? Because,
or was he hallucinating?
Right, he's about to die.
Right.
And he says that line to Han, Obi-Wan.
Dagobah.
Or he might have said Ben. He probably was saying Ben. Yeah, but and Han Solo's like, man, this guy's he's
talking
about
crazy.
He's about gone. I need to get him inside this thing.
Right.
So,
one thing I thought was kind of funny is that everybody keeps telling Han that if he leaves to go find Luke, he's going to die. They're like, it's so cold out there, you won't last 5 minutes. But all Han does, he finds him, he shoves him in a tauntaun, and then he like says he's setting up a shelter. And so it's like, none of these people are like, if you go out there, you'll die, unless you take a shelter with you. And then you'll be fine. But, don't go. And
right.
so I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, he was prepared.
Right. He's the only one that knows about the shelters or whatever he's building. He's figured it out, and he's like, I'm just keeping this to myself in case I need to go out in the cold.
Yeah. Then, of course, you've got the next morning, Wedge looking for them and finds them.
Wedge, by the way, in those snow speeders looks so uncomfortable. Like they do profile shots, and he looks okay in the profile shot. He looks like he's flying the thing normal. But whenever it's like a head-on shot of him, like from the front of the snowspeeder, it looks like he's so like just smashed in there that he like can barely like move around. He just looks very uncomfortable to me. I noticed that when watching this time anyway. I don't know. Maybe I feel like they only had like one speeder, or one snow speeder, and they would either do shots with Wedge or they would do shots with Luke. And like they built it for Mark Hamill, and then they got this actor who was too big for it. They like just pushed him in there, and they're like, "Yeah, you'll be fine."
It's like, no, I'm not, but I'll do it.
I can't move. Well, you don't need to move. Oh, okay, fine. All right.
Nice. The Battle of Hoth. Like we said, awesome. Anything in particular you want to discuss or point out about it?
About the Battle of Hoth?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've got this. I mentioned in the last podcast for Star Wars A New Hope that Darth Vader doesn't find out that he is a son until the Emperor mentions it to him. And then I saw the scene where they're talking about going and invading Hoth, and he's like, I'm sure Skywalker's on there, or down there. And I was like, oh, he knows about his son. So I was wrong. But then later on, the scene comes back with the Emperor, and he mentions the son of Skywalker.
He says, how is that possible?
How is that possible? So what was going through his head here? Like, why did he mention Skywalker at the beginning of the movie? And then all of a sudden he's like, that can't be.
Well, I wasn't paying super close attention, but I know. So they redid that scene where he's talking to the Emperor. Because in the theatrical version, it's a different actor playing the Emperor.
Right.
And with like different makeup and everything. And so I popped in the theatrical version to show Denise, who really wasn't interested, the difference. And I noticed that line about Luke being the son of Anakin Skywalker and him saying, how is that possible, was not in the theatrical version. So they added it to the special edition.
Interesting.
And again, why would they do that if he's already mentioning Skywalker in the beginning of the film?
Right. Because, I mean, you're editing this special edition, and they clearly left that in there.
Yeah.
Because you gotta have a reason for Darth Vader to be so intently focused on Hoth.
Right.
It's because Luke Skywalker's dead.
Well, it's also, I mean, yeah, I think he's interested in Luke Skywalker because he is, he said at the, I don't know how he knew it was Luke Skywalker, but at the end of A New Hope, the Force is strong with this one. So I think he is interested in this person who the Force is
right, but
strong
he doesn't know his name.
Doesn't know his name, though, right. So how he knows his name, I don't know. But, so I think, yes, Darth Vader is probably interested in finding this person, but I think he's also mostly interested in finding the Rebel base and wiping it out.
Sure.
And which they found.
Right.
But yeah, Darth Vader has his own little agenda. He wants to find this Force guy who happens to be Skywalker. He's like, right, Darth Vader's like, that name rings a bell.
Something.
How do I know that name?
Oh, that's awesome.
This film, I feel like, has a little more humor than it's darker. It's interesting because it's darker in terms of, I don't know, just in terms of theme, I suppose. It's not as light of a film, even though the first one had, death in it and whatnot. But, speaking of that, by the way, this is how much Denise was paying attention to A New Hope. I said something about Obi-Wan's ghost, and she goes, Obi-Wan's dead? And I was like, he dies in The New Hope.
That's okay. I've got a story later on when we get further into the movie.
So yeah, that was fun. Wife. I was like explaining the scene. I was like, "Don't you remember?" He's like, "If you strike me down, I will be more powerful." And she's like, "No." And I was like, and then Darth Vader swings the lightsaber and he like disappears. And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Were you asleep during that part?"
Wow. Speaking of which, I mean, I watched these movies when. I think I started watching them though when I was in 6th grade. Because the special editions came out 97? Yeah. Would have been, because 1977 was when A New Hope came out. So I started watching them before that, and but anyway, regardless, during that time of my life, I watched these movies probably
so much.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a Star Wars movie, one of the 3, because the prequels hadn't come out yet.
Right. The glory.
At least one a day.
Wow.
I would say for a good 6 to 9 months. I was just all Star Wars. My mom got me the figures, which was crazy because I had, a couple years before that gotten out of toys. I had been into X-Men, and I had all my X-Men figures, my Batman figures. X-Men came after Batman, and I was like, I'm done with these. And then Star Wars, my intrigue with Star Wars happened, and I was like, I've got to have these. So I started getting back into the figures, and I probably had more Star Wars than X-Men, though it was probably comparable because I had a lot of X-Men figures. But I had a ton of Star Wars figures, and it was just probably for almost a year of my entire life, all I thought about was Star Wars. I'd be driving to a restaurant with my parents, in the back seat. I'd be thinking about Star Wars. It's for real, like it was nonstop.
And that's probably how, kids were, like, whatever age you were at that time, the kids who were that age when it came out originally, it was probably like that as well. Although maybe you were luckier because back then they didn't really have, like, or at least in 77, I don't believe they had VHS. I could be wrong about that. I don't know when the first, like, VHS came out, but they couldn't really rewatch it like you did.
Right. I got to watch it all the time. Right. I get to, memorize the lines, know the scenes, know the characters, make sure I had my Luke Skywalker for, in his X-Wing pilot outfit, and anything that was in the, I had R5D4.
Oh, nice.
If you know who that is.
Well, I mean, is it the red one?
Yes, yeah. From the first movie, New Hope, the one that explodes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I knew at a time, I don't anymore, but I used to know names of planets and species of different creatures and stuff like that. So.
I did too. We talked about this, I think, in the last episode about how we had the Star Wars like encyclopedia that had like everything in it, and you just like constantly look through that and just know character names and species names and
right. And I hadn't read any of the books, and I remember seeing the Solo twins.
Right.
And I was like, "What? There's more?"
Right.
So it was an exciting time.
I would write like short stories, which probably just ripped off most of the movies. But I remember writing a short story that was supposed to take place like after Return of the Jedi, and it like took place on the moon of Endor or whatever. So it was like basically like right after Return of the Jedi ended, and I think I killed off Lando. Because I wanted somebody to like die, but I didn't want to kill off Han Solo or anything like that, so I killed off Lando.
Nice. I used to do just like we did with Club Green.
Oh yeah.
I did stop motion, not to the degree we did with Club Green, but I did like stop motion Star Wars movies. I would have been about 12 years old.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was probably close to around the time that I decided, hey, I want to be a director.
Right. I'm sure Star Wars probably had a bit of an influence on that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Jurassic Park was the movie that really made me realize the movie Magic.
Yeah.
Besides Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Back when I was young, I mean, Ghostbusters, you knew. But Jurassic Park really solidified it. It was like, this stuff's real.
Right.
And that was in 93. And then in 97, it was like, okay, this is insane. This goes beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
There's movies out there that there's more out there besides Jurassic Park that can really just change your world.
And anything can be done, really.
Right.
Like you could go anywhere and visit any planet or resurrect dinosaurs and things like that. Like anything was possible.
Right. Star Wars was really the first. Yeah, of course, you had Star Trek, but Star Wars was the first cinema example of where you could really go out in the universe to another world, and it was real.
Mm-hmm.
And Empire Strikes Back just really laid the ground for that. Like, we're not done. There's more story. And the ending, it does not end.
Right.
On a good note.
And it's left
on a
very
cliffhanger.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you had to go see Return of the Jedi when it came out. Spoiler alert, there is a third movie.
But at the same time, it's like a satisfying ending, and I think it's maybe because of the big reveal of Darth Vader saying to Luke, "I am your father."
Right.
Because like I'm trying to think of I've seen movies now where they shot them back to back, and Part 2 is pretty much all just a setup for Part 3, and it feels a little like it's almost annoying, when it's just all build up for the next movie. And that it doesn't feel that way in this movie. It doesn't feel like it's all build up for Return of the Jedi. It just feels like there's a few things that have been left unanswered, obviously. Like, what's going to happen to Han? And now that we know Darth Vader is Luke's father, like, what's going to happen with that? And so it wasn't like, you did have to see Return of the Jedi, obviously, because you wanted to know the answers to those questions. But at the same time, it wasn't like I just wasted 2 hours because they didn't, they're not going to tell me anything until the next movie.
Oh, absolutely. So. Yeah. No, this movie was very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I agree. It ended, it did not feel incomplete. It didn't feel like you were being tricked into having to buy another ticket to complete it.
Right.
And maybe that's because you were just so invested in it. You didn't care. You're like, I mean, you did care. You're like, I want to know, but it wasn't like, oh, they tricked me. I've got to go see another one now.
Right.
You wanted to. And, but the thing, that I've heard about this movie, I was too young. I was going to say I was too young to see this in theater, but I wasn't even born. Was a lot of people thought that the reveal of Darth Vader was a lie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, people were like,
he's the villain. Of course he's going to say stuff like that.
Yeah. Right. He's not Luke Skywalker's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until Return of the Jedi, spoiler alert, that Yoda confirms it. He is your dad. But this, I mean, the whole moment is I can't think of a more milestone in cinema than Darth Vader revealing to Luke Skywalker that he was his father. Nothing like that had ever been done before. I think people probably had heart attacks in the theater as that happened.
It was an iconic moment for sure. I mean, it was before either of us were born. So you and I grew up knowing that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father.
Unfortunately, yes, I did know that before I watched the movies.
But yeah, I wish that I could have seen it in the theater and experienced it like that for the first time with everybody else. Seeing it on opening night, you know. That would have been awesome. Hearing probably the collective gasp.
Yeah. And thudding as people had heart attacks.
Passing out. There's a Simpsons episode, apparently. I haven't actually seen it, but I was told about it, where I'm assuming it's a flashback or something, and Homer is walking out of The Empire Strikes Back, and there's this huge line of people waiting to go into the next showing, and he's like, I can't believe Darth Vader is Luke's father. And everybody's like, come on!
That actually happened with our friend Chris.
For The Sixth Sense.
For The Sixth Sense. He was in line.
Yep.
And some couple jerks came out and were like, I can't believe. Spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen The Sixth Sense, turn this podcast off.
Turn it off. Bruce Willis was dead the whole movie. Oh, and man, what a terrible. Oh, man, I can't believe. I had a pun unintended sense that Bruce Willis was dead when I was watching that. I don't know if I had accidentally read that somewhere. But it just it was in my when he revealed it at the end, and you were there, if you remember, at Doug's house when we were watching that movie, and I was falling asleep the last 20 minutes. You guys were so mad, you're like, John.
I do remember that.
This is the moment you need to be awake.
That was infuriating. Yes, that movie. That, I would say, that movie obviously didn't have the cultural impact. I mean, I guess it kind of did. I mean, everybody knew I See Dead People and all that stuff. But I was going to say, it didn't have the cultural impact that Star Wars obviously does.
Nothing has.
However, yeah, true. However, that, I would say, is probably the closest that I could come to experiencing the I Am Your Father moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, my friend saw it first. And he, thankfully, didn't tell me anything. He just said, you got to see this movie. Let's go see this movie. And I said, okay. And so we went to, I was in high school when it came out. So I think after high school, we went to the theater. And like I said, he was smart enough to not tell me a single thing. He didn't even say, like, there's a twist at the end. You know what I mean? Like, which is good. Because then I honestly was not looking for it during the movie. I was just watching the movie and enjoying it. And then when that was...
I knew there was a twist.
Right, and that'll ruin it sometimes. If you know that... Like, I really wish people wouldn't say that. Like, you'll never see the ending coming. Because then you're like, well, now I'm expecting something to happen. And so I wasn't expecting anything. And when that moment was revealed, my jaw dropped. I literally looked over to my friend, and I was just like... And he was just nodding. He was like, yep.
Nice.
And so that was awesome. I was really glad that wasn't ruined for me, and I got to experience that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, when your kids get older, because I'm assuming they haven't seen The Sixth Sense yet.
They have not, and they have no idea.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When they get to the age where they'll actually watch the movie, perhaps, I wonder if they'll know. Because it's referenced in media and other things, Like I was watching some TV show or something the other day where somebody mentioned Bruce Willis being dead at the end of Sixth Sense, and it's just such common knowledge now that's the twist in that movie that I wonder if your kids will just know that's the twist of that movie.
I'll tell you what, man, it's October now, and we're watching horror movies, and I let my kids watch It. So
next up, Sixth Sense.
I might let them watch Sixth Sense. I don't know if they're old enough yet though to really
get it.
But I think they could be. But what I was going to say was, the things that clued me in were, it was really the dinner scene,
where
you're sitting down and talking to her, and she was just totally
ignoring,
unresponsive, and I was like. Something in my head was like, what if she doesn't hear him? So, and the fact that he says, I see dead people. And I'm like, he would be able to see Bruce Willis. So, And then at the end, it was still cool though, 'cause,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But it was not to the degree like you got, which
Right.
I wish I had, because I don't think I've ever had a moment like that. Even with Gone Girl, like I knew there was a plot twist.
Right.
It was still shocking.
The second closest moment that I've had like that, which again, thankfully, wasn't ruined for me, and is now, I feel like, fairly common knowledge, is The Usual Suspects. The first time
that was unfortunately ruined for me by my coworker.
Yeah.
And I watched it shortly after that because of that, but he was like, spoiler alert.
Oh, Lord.
He was like, so at the end, when Kevin Spacey turns out to be the bad guy, and I'm like, I haven't seen that movie.
You're like, thanks a lot.
But of course, everyone that I tell I haven't seen that movie, or, you know, was like, wow, that I was ruined for me. They're like, well, how had you not seen that movie?
Right.
So.
And that was one that, I mean, that came out in 95, I think. So and it was rated R, and so I'm 12 years old, so I didn't get to see that in the theater. But it was recommended to me by one of my high school teachers, and so I watched it in high school. And so, thankfully, again, he didn't tell me why we needed to watch it. He just said it was a good movie. And so, watched The Usual Suspects, and I remember being pretty surprised by the ending of that movie, too, because, you know, like I said, when you know there's a twist coming, you're, like, looking for it. And some people do that with every movie. But fortunately for me, I can not do that, you know? And if I, especially if I don't know there's a twist coming, obviously, I'll just kind of sit there and enjoy the movie and let it kind of happen. And I'm not really trying to figure it out. And I didn't do that with Usual Suspects, and it really paid off. And I didn't do that with Sixth Sense, and it really paid off. So those two moments were that's about as close as I think I'll ever get to the Luke guy.
The closest one I had that I can think of, because I know that there's a few more, but was
this is the spoiler episode.
Spoiler alert. The Others.
Oh yeah. I remember The Others. Yeah,
which is basically the same spoiler as Sixth Sense,
right?
But I hadn't seen the Sixth Sense at that point, and that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That was the closest we'll get to Darth Vader revealing to Luke that he is his father. That set piece, I know we've skipped over a nice huge chunk of the movie, but that set piece where Luke and Darth Vader are lightsaber dueling, and it starts off in like one area of Cloud City, Bespin, what is it? Cloud City, and then moves on to like that other part, like that part where he's, you know, where he gives the speech to Luke and everything.
Right.
I'll never join you. Like that's just a cool set. It just
it's
looks
amazing.
Awesome and everything. Yeah.
And
Luke
Mark
getting
Hamill,
his hand cut off and everything. Like you weren't expecting that.
Right. And it happens so quick, and you just have to take it all in at once.
Mm-hmm.
And then he scoots down, and he's like, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father, did he?
He told me enough.
He told me you killed him. No, I am your father. Yeah, that whole thing is just, it just gives me chills thinking about how impactful and how iconic and just massive that whole scene is to everything, not just in the movie, not just in the universe for Star Wars, but in cinema and in our culture. It's just, you can't, overexpress how big that was. Talking about the fighting scene, I love how at the beginning, and I don't remember if he probably ends up changing, but the beginning of the battle, Darth Vader's fighting with one hand with his lightsaber.
It's too easy for him.
It's like a tease, yeah. He's like, come on, man. You're fighting Darth Vader.
Right. And in the beginning of the battle, he's not really trying to kill him. He's trying to get him into the carbonite chamber and freeze him, just like he did with Han.
Correct.
So he's just trying to kind of lure him to this one area.
So I mentioned that to my wife, though. The one I was like, look at Darth Vader. He's fighting with one arm. And then he swings and Luke ducks. And she goes, yeah. And he hits a pipe.
And he's sucking.
But even better than that, I've been forgetting to tell this in all of our Star Wars episodes. And this is the perfect movie to do it for. Was when I first showed my wife the trailer for The Force Awakens. And it shows Han Solo at the end. And he goes, Chewie, we're home. And my wife looked at me and she was like, How did he age if he's been frozen this whole time? And it's like, dear, Return of the Jedi.
I hope you said it just like that, too. Return of the Jedi!
You'll have divorce papers in 4 days.
What is it with our significant others not remembering anything from Star Wars?
Yeah, my wife is not the biggest fan of Star Wars. Like I said previously, I think in a New Hope episode, she likes the Abrams Star Trek movies, which I'm so happy about that because I love the Abrams movies. Which is so exciting to know that he's doing Force Awakens.
Right, so she'll probably be a big fan of Force Awakens.
I would hope so. She did say after she watched the trailer that she was intrigued to see it. So
As much as you're going to get. I'm intrigued.
Right. Somewhat interested.
You're like pulling your hair out and everything's so excited. Oh my God, Star Wars! And she's like, it looks all right.
Yeah.
I'm mildly interested. I had a question about the ending. So, when Luke leaves Dagobah and Obi-Wan says, that boy was our only hope, and Yoda says, no, there was another, or there is another.
Right.
I remember forgetting about Leia when I watched that one time, like with my dad. I remember sitting next to my dad. I don't know why I have this memory, but I remember looking at him when Yoda said that, and I was like, who's the other person? And my dad was like, Leia. I was like, all right.
Nice.
And so then at the end of the movie, Luke's hanging there from the bottom of Cloud City essentially, and he's like, Leia, and she suddenly is like, Luke, we have to go back. Now, I don't necessarily think that I don't know if people were able to put together the connection that they were brother and sister at that point. Right. But do you think most people at that point realized that Leia had the Force and that was maybe who Yoda was talking about?
I wouldn't say most people. Maybe some.
Some people put it together?
But I don't think that really necessarily... Does the fact that she's able to hear him mean that she's Force sensitive?
I would kind of assume. I mean, it's similar to like the end of A New Hope when Obi-Wan is saying use the Force, even though at that point Obi-Wan's dead.
Right.
But that's kind of what I assumed, is that it was the Force and she wasn't. I mean, you could say it was just a feeling she had, but I mean, I would assume it would be the Force.
No. I mean, I take it that she heard his voice, but can they not telepathically communicate to non-Force sensitive people, is the question.
Oh, that is a good question. Like, if he was just a call out to Han, would Han Solo have heard him?
Right.
I don't know. That's an excellent question. Because he didn't... Well, did Luke know that Han was frozen at that point?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So he just happened to call out for Leia.
He did. He had a vision, though, on Dagobah. So maybe he did know. But, I mean, he was like, I can save them. If I don't, they'll die.
And he saw Leia before, because she was like, it's a trap. So maybe that was just like, it was kind of like the first person he thought of because it was the last person he saw. But yeah, that's interesting. that whole scene too with Han Solo being frozen in carbonite is now such a classic scene, and I'm sure you know that like originally it was scripted that she says I love you and he says I love you too, and then he gets frozen and he said I know, which apparently really kind of pissed off George Lucas, but he was like, well, it's better, and it was.
And it was.
So,
it's so good.
Such a good scene.
That's
and
what,
now that image of Han Solo frozen in carbonite has become so iconic. And
yeah, I mean, when he was making that mold, little did he know. I mean, it would become what it is.
Yeah. And that's another thing, seeing that for the first time. Like, how crazy would that be? Han Solo goes down into this chamber and then comes back up. Basically, he's like this giant, like, looks like kind of a metal ice cube type thing.
Right.
Like that.
You had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
You just knew that Darth Vader said, if he does not survive, the Empire will compensate you, Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, right.
And, of course, we didn't know his name at the time.
Right, yeah, they hadn't... I don't think he was... Is he in the... I haven't looked in the credits, so I don't know if he's listed as Boba Fett or if he's just listed as, like, bounty hunter or what.
Yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, his name wasn't said until Return of the Jedi.
Right.
He didn't become a fan favorite until then, really. Anyway, yeah, we had no knowledge of what was going to happen. That he might die, but he could survive too. And he comes back up, and Lando checks, and he's still alive.
He's just frozen, and he doesn't get thawed out in this movie.
And I actually didn't know. I don't think until. I mean, I might have known at another time, but I had forgotten or didn't know, one of the two, that Luke Skywalker was intended to go in the carbonite as well.
Oh, like you just kind of missed that point, I guess?
Yeah.
Originally? Right, I don't think, as a kid, like seeing it in the theater in 97 and stuff, I don't know if I picked up on that either. I just probably didn't hear him say that. But yeah, that was like they were testing it on Han, yeah.
Exactly, that was the whole purpose.
Right, so they could freeze Luke. And I'm assuming deliver him to the Emperor? Or just get, I mean, I don't know. Were they going to thaw him out, or they were just going to keep him that way because he was like the biggest threat?
I bet they were going to thaw him because the whole conversation that he has with the Emperor is that he could be right, exactly, convert him. He'll be a great ally.
Right.
And of course, Darth Vader has different plans. It's like, we can take over.
We can destroy the Emperor and
rule the galaxy as father and son. He's got small plans. He needs to save the universe.
I wonder if the Emperor heard that with the Force and was like, say what?
So after Hoth, Luke Skywalker goes to Dagobah. That's a very important scene.
No, it's not.
Yeah, you're right. Who cares?
There's this character named Yoda who's not important. I still really think that, I don't know, the prequels kind of, if prequels aside, I've always thought Yoda was my favorite character. I mean, my email address has Yoda in the title.
Exactly.
And I remember having a conversation with a high school friend, and she was like, why do you like Yoda? He doesn't do anything. And this was before the prequels came out. And I was like, he doesn't do anything. I was like, he trains Luke Skywalker to become a Jedi. Like, how is that nothing?
Right.
And so I used to, I couldn't, that blew my mind.
He pulls Luke Skywalker's X-Wing out of the pond to show Luke, hey, this is real stuff, okay?
I don't believe it. That is why you fail.
You expect the impossible.
I love Yoda. I think he's a great character. And I love his introduction in this movie, too. How he's like,
goofy.
He pretends to not be Yoda. Right. He's like, I'll take you to him. He's really testing Luke's patience.
Right.
And then he finds out that he's too impatient. I can't train this guy. I thought it was really well done.
Too old to begin the training. I like how that's like his last resort. He's like, that does it. He's like, I don't have to argue anymore. He's too old.
I'm 900 years old. I do not have to train anybody.
Speaking of which, let's go into that. Is he 900? 900? I know he
in Return of the
800.
Jedi, he's on his deathbed in Return of the Jedi. Spoiler alert. And he says, "When 900 years old you look, or when you are, look as good you will not." I remember that line. Okay. So he does say 900 years old.
So he's 900 years old.
He could be rounding up or something, but
right. But he wasn't that feeble in the prequels.
Right.
Not even close. I mean, he battles Count Dooku and is doing flips and stuff.
Right.
And
but
then
he has his cane, and he like stumbles out with his cane after that battle.
He does. But I just feel like, now granted, they didn't have the prequels in mind at this point. You know, this was the first time Yoda was introduced, and I think this is the Yoda that that Yoda is. And he kind of got changed for the prequels.
Yeah,
because I don't think this. I mean, Luke's 1920 at this point. So at the end of Revenge of the Sith, this is 20 years after.
Right.
He would not have been. I don't think 20 years compared to 900 would not affect him that much.
Right.
So,
and I really, honestly, obviously they're able to do more with a CGI Yoda for the prequels. He can have those battle scenes and everything. But watching this movie really made me miss the puppet Yoda.
Absolutely.
And I know they had a puppet in Phantom, which looked really weird, and they ended up, now it's been CG'd out and replaced. But yeah, seeing Yoda as the puppet in this movie, even though you can tell it's a puppet and everything, having it there though, like, it just, to me, I'll take this Yoda over the CGI Yoda any day.
Oh yeah, the CGI Yoda to me looks bad.
Yeah.
This is Yoda.
Yeah. Absolutely.
On Dagobah, they have the scene where Luke is going into the cave.
Oh yeah.
And Darth Vader comes out. And I imagine what the audience was thinking at that point, that had seen it for the first time.
What? Yeah.
Like, oh, dude, Darth Vader knows where Luke is and he followed him? Turns out to be, of course, a vision or whatever you want to call it.
Some sort of test, yeah.
But Luke Skywalker's face is inside Darth Vader's mask, which took me a long time to figure that out, by the way. Like, I think for a long time I thought it was some girl or... Because he looks kind of feminine there,
right?
Or just I didn't know. But one day I was like, oh my, that's Luke. What do you think that means?
Well, I'm not really sure, and I know that later on, Yoda says something about how he failed that test. So I'm not really sure if there's some sort of metaphor there. I've always kind of wondered about it. But right before he goes into that cave, I think Yoda says something about how a Jedi never attacks, he just defends, or something like that.
Mm.
And in that little fight scene in the cave, Luke attacks Darth Vader.
Right.
He defends himself at first, but then he swings and decapitates Darth Vader. And I wondered if that was what made him fail that test or what. But I don't really... Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly what it means that his face was in Darth Vader's mask.
I always thought... there's several possibilities here. You've got Luke has the lineage of Darth Vader.
Sure. Which he doesn't know that yet.
Right. But, I mean, that wouldn't
Yoda
stop...
does.
Right, it wouldn't stop the vision. Another one that I can think of is that Luke, if he doesn't control himself, can
become Darth Vader.
Become basically Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. What's another one?
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay, well then I would go with that one then for sure. If he isn't careful, he could become, what he fears the most, probably.
Right.
I could definitely see that being the message that he's supposed to learn. And that's the whole, when he's leaving Dagobah, Yoda is like essentially not begging him to stay, but he's basically saying, like, you're not ready. And if you leave now, you will most likely fall to the dark side. You will become Darth Vader, essentially.
Right.
And,
I agree. I think that makes the most sense.
Right. And Luke's like, it's cool, man. I got this.
Yeah.
And leaves.
Even Obi-Wan is like, dude, you should not go.
Right.
You're not done. This is bad. And he's like, I've got to save my friends. It ends up working out for him.
For the most part, I mean, loses his hand, but yeah, he doesn't really save anybody.
But they were so concerned about him turning.
Right, sure. He doesn't turn.
And he does not turn.
He does resist Darth Vader's
sort of. I will bring this up. This was brought up to me recently, and it's a good point. Someone said to me, you know him, Brent.
Uh-huh.
That the moment in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back is not when Darth Vader reveals that he's his dad. It's when Luke Skywalker is saved and he's back in the ship. And the first time that you hear him say, Ben, why didn't you tell me? That's, and I can kind of see his point, is that's a very big moment because the audience is watching their hero starting to question his mentor. Like, you lied to me, you know? And he didn't. But in Luke's mind, he did.
Right.
And he's like, and he just found out who his father is. He doesn't know. He told him. He didn't believe him. But you could see definitely after he's saved, Darth Vader calls out to him, and he's like, he says, "Father." So I think he's kind of convinced at that point. And then again, the second time, he goes up to the cockpit, and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me, Ben?" And I think that moment is very significant because you've got your hero here questioning their mentor, questioning everything they've been taught. And they have their father saying, "Hey, you're on the wrong side. You need to come with me." And Luke is trying to figure out at this moment, do I believe the guy that lied to me? You know, or
right. Or my father.
Do I listen to my father who's saying, you're on the wrong side, you're missing out? And I think that's a great moment because you don't know, your hero is completely broken. Everything he's learned, everything he's fought for, everything he's believed in has been shattered at this moment.
Right.
Because he was, in his mind, lied to. So he's starting over. And he's like, where do I go from here? And that's another big, cliffhanger for the audience is, what's Luke going to do?
Absolutely. That's a great point. And that makes a lot of sense. So there's still some things we haven't talked about. The introduction of a new character, Lando Calrissian, played by Billy D. Williams, who is an old friend of Han Solo, and we learn in this film that he was the original owner, right? The original owner of the Millennium Falcon?
He was the owner before Han. I don't know if he had it
He
before.
might have gotten it from somebody else, right?
Right. But yes, Han Solo got the Millennium Falcon from Lando. And I always forget how good of a job he does. I always undercredit him until I watch his scenes, and I'm like, man, he's great.
He is awesome.
I like too how smooth he tries to be and is with Leia.
Leia, right? Do you think he does that because he really finds Leia that attractive, and he's like interested in Leia, or is he doing it because he knows He has a feeling that Han is kind of, with her, and does it to just kind of rub Han the wrong way.
Probably both. Mixture of both. I definitely think he's attracted. Because he's the kind of guy that's going to act out on for himself,
Right.
But I'm sure he's thinking, is this Han's girl? I don't care, whether she is or not. I think I'm going to try.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of him, just trying to kind of mess with Han too, though.
Yeah. I like Han's comment too, as he's going through and he's taking him to the city after they land, and he's talking about all the things he has to do. He's like, "You sound like a businessman." Just to really solidify that this guy was like Han Solo.
Yeah,
at one point.
Once was probably the exact same as Han Solo, and
right, playing gambling games, losing his ship. He's this successful, this very successful guy that's now the head of a city, which also gives you a kind of, hopefully, we don't know at this point because in Return of the Jedi it doesn't happen, but you kind of get to see what the potential of Han Solo will be in the future.
Right.
Though he's a scoundrel right now, he could become like Lando, powerful, responsible. Though Lando ends up being the one that kind of backstabs him. But you can't blame him for it.
And he tries to redeem himself. He feels bad about it, and
not only does he try, he does.
He succeeds, right? He saves Leia and Chewie and all that. Of course, it's one of kind of I love that it's it's almost a running joke throughout the whole movie that the light speed does not work on the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I love it. And I love Han Solo's reaction most of the time. He's like, "It's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's not my fault." But even Lando thinks that it's been fixed because his people fixed it. But little does he know that Darth Vader and everything, I believe, has had it turned off or whatever. I can't remember. And so even Lando is confused when it doesn't work.
And you can see the connection between the two because he's the same way. It's not my fault.
It's not my fault. Yeah. And that's, the asteroid field. Actually, I have always loved the moment when suddenly the Millennium Falcon is not on their radar anymore. He's like, they disappeared. He's like, no ship that small has a cloaking device. Mm-hmm. And then it shows the outside of the Star Destroyer, and he's like just attached to like a little barnacle, basically, like on the edge of the.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And then he goes away with the trash.
Yeah, it's genius.
It's ridiculously genius. It's so perfect.
But Boba Fett was equally as genius.
He was.
And he was in the trash as well. He had a feeling, and he was correct.
Yeah. If it hadn't been for this movie, we were revealed in Return of the Jedi what Boba Fett's name is. We get a character name, which makes him even a bigger character. But if it hadn't been for this movie, no one would have really cared who Boba Fett was. Sure. Not to the degree they do now.
Well, it's like the other bounty hunters in that scene when Boba Fett's first introduced. It's like you have like that weird kind of Gorn-looking one. Gorn from Star Trek, kind of dinosaur-ish character.
His name's Bosk. I know his name.
Oh. Yeah, but nobody cares about him.
Right. I only know him because of the figure I have.
Right. And then I'm sure every bounty hunter in that scene has a name, and they're probably in that encyclopedia.
I actually know two more.
Well, there you go.
The droid is called IG-88. And I know that from the game, which if you had a 64, we were just talking about this before we started recording.
Sounds really familiar. So I think it was.
Did you play Shadows of the Empire on 64? Oh, that game was amazing. Yeah. He's one of the bosses in that. And then another character figure I had was the guy that's like wrapped up like in bandages, and his name is Dengar.
Oh, but none of them are as cool as Boba Fett.
Yeah, but they're cool. They are cool.
All right. Well, way to just ruin my point. But
No one else knows. I would say most of the people, even listening to this podcast, didn't know their names. So
I don't know. There's
got one up on you.
Star Wars fans know their Star Wars trivia.
They do.
So I don't know about that, but yeah.
So the asteroid scene, I love how they go into the cave. It's all safe. Han Solo mentions as they're checking out the exterior, it's moist in here. And then the ground moves, and they leave, and it's a giant worm. Love that. I don't know what that worm's eating to stay alive.
I don't either. And it's not very good at eating things. There was something literally in its like throat/stomach, and it left, so it couldn't get it. So it clearly doesn't have to live off much.
Yeah. But he's there.
But that was that's something that like having not seen the movie at all, like the first time you see it, you don't expect that at all, and it's really great. The cave's closing. This isn't a cave.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's an awesome moment.
I think that's about it. Got Hoth, you've got the asteroid, you've got Darth Vader choking lots of people.
He kills so many people. It's like, I was thinking that watching this, I was like, I don't know why anybody would, maybe they're drafted or something. They don't have a choice. But I was like, why would anybody join the Empire? You wouldn't want to get promoted at all. You don't necessarily want to be a stormtrooper because stormtroopers constantly die.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to bring up. Why do stormtroopers even bother? Why do they bother putting armor on these guys?
Because one shot kills them.
One shot kills them. It's just like, okay, you might as well have been just naked.
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, man, their armor sucks.
It's terrible. And Luke mentions in A New Hope that they can't see anything. So, I mean, I guess it's just to look scary.
I guess so.
Which works. They're very intimidating.
Yeah, and so then you don't want to necessarily get promoted within the Empire because the closer you get to Darth Vader, the more likely you are that he's going to just choke you to death when you make one mistake.
Well, you notice the reaction of the captain when the first admiral gets choked, and he's like, "You are admiral now.
You are now in charge."
And it's like, oh.
Can I maybe this guy instead?
Right.
And I love...
But you dare not say that to Darth Vader.
Right. And he has like that same reaction at the very end when he's like, you disabled the light speed? And he's like, yes, my lord, or whatever. And then they shoot off into light speed, and he's just like... You could see like the blood just like drain from his face, basically. He's like... It's like, I'm so dead.
But he leaves him alive.
He does. Which makes Darth Vader even scarier because he's unpredictable.
He is. He's like, well, I'll save that for later.
He just looks at him as he's walking by. He's like...
Something that was brought up to me, too, recently was... I never noticed this, but all the people that are of the Empire have British accents.
It's and all the rebels have American accents.
They do.
That's I wonder why that is. I mean, I know they shot the movie, like the first movie they shot in London, or they shot at Pinewood Studios in England or whatever. So I'm not surprised that they have English actors, but
they're all in the Empire. Like all of the people that talk that are for the Empire have British accents.
I never noticed that either.
It was brought up to my attention like a month ago.
That means C-3PO is secretly working for the Empire.
There you go.
It's going to be revealed in Episode 9.
I mean, he was built by Anakin.
Is actually the bad guy. He's been the bad guy the whole time. He was like above the Emperor.
I don't want to go into any theories for A Force Awakens, so I'll shut up now.
Okay.
Speaking of which, are you going to watch the trailer?
Is there a new one coming out?
Yeah, it's going to be dropped on... Well, it's going to be dropped eventually, of course. They haven't
I'm assuming there's got to be at least one more trailer that comes out before the
because all they have had is teasers. There's not even been a trailer. There's been no trailer for Star Wars Force Awakens.
You wouldn't consider the last one a trailer? The last one was a teaser?
Yeah, it's a teaser. What information of the story did you get? Nothing.
Yeah, but it's Star Wars. Like, I don't feel like you have to give a whole lot of story. I don't think they want to give you any story details. I think they want to keep that as close to under wraps as possible.
But
so
still, that's a teaser. I mean, a trailer gives information. Teasers are
teasers. They tease you. Right.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So there will be a trailer. Advanced tickets are going to be on sale. Apparently, it's been announced on October 18th.
Good to know.
Yes.
It's a Sunday. That's weird.
So they're probably going to drop the trailer before that.
I would assume.
My guess is a couple days beforehand so that you get the buzz talking and then the tickets are available. And people are already talking about the movie. Let's go ahead and get the tickets. So I'm assuming the trailer will be released on the 18th or a couple days before.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I will not watch it, to answer your question.
I think I might. I know I've been pretty hardcore about not, but I don't know if I can resist. I've been steering clear pretty much of everything that's been coming out and the rumors and everything, but
I think the trailer reveals that Bruce Willis is dead.
It's J.J. Abrams. Let's be honest. He didn't reveal Khan, even though it got out. For
people assumed, I think.
But he never revealed that. And I mean, this is Disney behind this. They know. I think they're going to protect. This is probably their most prized investment, and I think they're going to protect it well.
My thing is, and sure, and that's why I'm saying, like, I don't know how much of the story they're going to really reveal in the trailer. And my thing is, like, I'm definitely going to see the movie. And what I've seen has gotten me excited about it, so I don't need to see any more. So I'm going to just go in.
I think there's a chance that Luke Skywalker's not even going to be in the trailer.
He probably won't be.
Because I think we won't go into that. But.
Save it for December's episode.
I think they're going to save the reveal of Luke Skywalker for people.
The film?
For the film.
Yeah. I think so, too. I mean, the fact that we've only seen one glimpse of Han Solo.
Right.
I think they're going to try to save all the original actors for the
film.
And
I think that's very smart.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to want to go see Luke Skywalker.
Right. So, yeah, for sure. For rating for Empire Strikes Back?
Come on.
1 star?
5.
5 stars.
5 out of 5 stars for this movie.
I think I gave A New Hope an A+, didn't I?
I don't know why you wouldn't have.
Right. Well, this one gets an A+, too.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I said that A New Hope was my favorite out of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Watching this movie now, I mean, it's the consensus that this is the favorite for most people.
I've not seen Return of the Jedi in a while, so I am looking forward to rewatching that, and then I can kind of make it. But as of right now, Empire still is my favorite.
Well, I doubt Return of the Jedi.
I don't think Return is going to overtake it. But I don't know. Back when I was younger, Return of the Jedi was my favorite.
Sure, but man, just watching this and comparing it to what Star Wars was, which was, of course, an amazing movie, 5 out of 5 stars. But this was so much deeper. This wasn't 3 people on the Millennium Falcon trying to go places and get stuck in the Death Star, which, like I said again, and I'm going to reiterate, was amazing.
Yeah.
But this was this was so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And I might say that this one does overtake A New Hope for me. They're both separate, very different movies in the same universe, but both of them are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think I love so much about it, is it's not just, it's clear that George Lucas, well, at least I'm hoping, had an idea about the second movie, and he had an idea about the third movie. It wasn't like he only had Star Wars in mind, and then when it did really well, they decided to make a sequel. I think he had a trilogy in mind when he,
He claims he did.
Right.
I think there's some elements to what he claims was planned is not true.
Right.
But I think he probably did have a continuing story in mind.
I think he had, I think, there's probably pieces that he had planned out ahead of time. Like maybe he knew Darth Vader was going to be Luke's father ahead of time. Maybe he knew Leia was going to be his sister or whatever. But
that's the one I kind of doubt. That's one of the ones I kind of doubt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I feel like, it's not just more of the same. We didn't have another X-Wing battle with a Death Star. We had a cool kind of spaceship battle with the planet, with the Hoth battle.
Right.
But the third act of the movie is so much different than the third act of the original Star Wars, where they're all flying around in the original Star Wars, and this one was just a much more kind of intimate fight scene between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker.
Right.
So it was it's like the same universe and different planets, but it's the same, it's Star Wars 2, but it's so different.
Yeah.
It's a great sequel.
It's like a magnifying glass to the universe,
Mm-hmm.
They really took you down in there and said, this is where you are.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to hear what you think about Empire Strikes Back, and you can always, tell us about the things that we're wrong about, and tell us the real theory behind the cave on Dagobah. You can leave us a comment on cinemaheroes.com, or you can leave us a comment, obviously, on Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SN podcast. Or you can throw us a line on Twitter @CinemaHeroes. I think that wraps up this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. May the Force be with you.